A lot of Christians are ignorant when we want to get into a new business, we want to get into a new territory, and we know that we have a good thing, we have a good message, we have a good solution that will help people, but we come in ignorant of the fact that the ignorance in that land is actually feeding some people. There are people who are profiting from the darkness in that area. If you don't come in with the expectation that you are coming into spiritual warfare, you become a casualty of the battle. I feel like this was a very significant moment. You know, for people who were operating their businesses around this temple, they have been hearing the message of Jesus. They have been hearing the name. They have been hearing this message that Paul was preaching. And in their minds, they're like, well, it's not hurting our business, so they can keep on doing what they're doing. Yeah, people are believing, no problem. We're still making money. But I believe this was a very significant moment because the moment those who practice sorcery brought their scrolls together and burned them publicly. And it says when they calculated the value of the scrolls, the total came to about 50,000 drachmas. A drachma was a day's wage. So imagine today, the day's wage is about, on average, let's say in the developed economy, is like $100 and something. We're looking at about $4 to $5 million that was burnt, not sold, it was burnt publicly. So this must have sent shock waves throughout Ephesus. The sorcery shops have closed though. Have you heard? Like the sorcerers are no more in business. They've closed shop. And I can imagine a man named Demetrius. Verse 23 says, about that time there arose a great disturbance about the way, and a silversmith named Demetrius, who made silver shrines of Artemis, brought in a lot of business for the craftsman there. So it means that this man, Demetrius, was like a wholesaler. He was a wholesale businessman who would create mini shrines, mini temples, and would sell it to the retailers in that jurisdiction. So you can imagine how rich this man would have been. You can imagine when he caught the idea the first time. Probably grew up in that region. He's like, you know what? I mean, still like he has learned how to mold silver and all these things, and then he gets this great idea, and maybe I've even seen somebody else do it, but he caught the idea on how to make it bigger. I don't need to be selling at the temple. Why don't I just create it en masse, sell it to these people? They can do all the work. All I need to do is just create it. And so he brought a lot of business for the craftsman there. But guess what? The gospel that was saving people had now become a threat to his livelihood and even much deeper to his identity. And this is where I believe it is very, very important, because Demetrius had tied his identity to his craft, to his business, to his success. A message had come in that was threatening to destroy what had made him successful. And because his identity was tied to the material, he became the opposition to the thing that was sent to bring light and life to the people in that jurisdiction. This is where persecution comes from. A lot of Christians are ignorant when we want to get into a new business, we want to get into a new territory, and we know that we have a good thing, we have a good message, we have a good solution that will help people, but we come in ignorant of the fact that the ignorance in that land is actually feeding some people. There are people who are profiting from the darkness in that area. And so if you don't come in with the expectation that you are coming into spiritual warfare, you become a casualty of the battle. Demetrius is probably thinking, what will happen if my business fails? He's probably seeing the evidence of the sorcerers who had been practicing sorcery for years, decades. It has not been passed down from generation to generation, and all of a sudden they are burning their scrolls. Now they have to learn a new skill. Now they need to get a new job. Demetrius is like, what? After I built all this, I need to go and start again? And as I was studying this, the Holy Spirit began to remind me that this is one of the greatest dangers of people becoming successful at the wrong things. You know, one of the things that breaks my heart is whenever I see child celebrities, when you think of a Justin Bieber or Chris Brown, people who attain success at an early age, I feel sorry for them a lot of the time. I haven't seen one that their lives, like I know Justin Bieber right now has become a Christian and all that. We're praying for him that he really gets into his life really gets transformed. But it's a very dangerous thing to be successful at the wrong thing, because your identity gets attached to that thing, to the point of when the message of Jesus gets presented to you and you are presented with the idea that there needs to be a change, what you need to sacrifice becomes way more compared to what other people have had to sacrifice. Imagine these people, the whole world knows them for their craft. They have experienced the joy of feeling the validation from these people. And then all of a sudden, God is telling you need to give that up and let us start again. Now you see why the man, the rich young ruler, went away sad. Because it's like, Jesus, do you know what you're asking me? Do you know how long it took me to build the wealth, the assets, the name, the reputation, and you are telling me to give it away? Literally to burn it. This is why Jesus also said it's going to be hard for rich people to enter the kingdom of heaven, because Mammon has become their God. They have put in work to build in the Mammon economy. You're not telling me to surrender that and put my trust in you. It is why a lot of people struggle with accepting the gospel. When you think about it, not just child celebrities, they are atheists, there are people who have built a platform. Think about it, on YouTube, there are atheists who are known for opposing God. And you can imagine at some point in their lives, I'm sure at some point they've doubt has crept in that, come on now, it is obvious. But because they have already built a following, it is hard to now go back and say, oops, I got it wrong. And so instead of accepting they are wrong, they justify it and get other people to justify it with them so that it can nourish their conscience to not accept that they are wrong, but to convince themselves that the lie they believed is actually right. Because what will happen? The moment, look at what happened to Bill Carson. Bill Carson had gone around talking about how the Bible was corrupt and all this, and then one person came and disputed what he was saying, and now his following is gone. His trust is gone. When you even think about it, it is why even some pastors today, they built a church on the wrong doctrine. Maybe they read something out of context, but they've preached it. A lot of people have come to their church because of it. And now they've read or heard the truth. But if I go back and I tell them I made a mistake, oh boy, we're going to lose the congregation. And so instead of accepting, they double down and triple down. Rather than sacrificing, they justify and encourage others to do the same. You see why it says a silversmith named Demetrius, who made silver shrines of Artemis, brought in a lot of business for the craftsman there, and he called them together along with the workers in related trades and said, you know, my friends, that we receive a good income from this business. And you see and hear how this fellow Paul has convinced and led astray large numbers of people here in Ephesus and in practically the whole province of Asia. He says that gods made by human hands are no gods at all. There is danger not only that our trade will lose its good name, but also that the temple of the great goddess Artemis will be discredited. And the goddess herself, who is worshipped throughout the province of Asia and the world, will be robbed of her divine majesty. And so because of this, their business was at stake. Their reputation was at stake. Their identity was at stake. And so they came together. And it says when they heard this, they were furious. So it's possible that their business hadn't been affected yet, but Demetrius could see into the future. You know, as a business guy, he could see into the future that this thing is going to affect us at some point. With the way this thing is going, if we don't stop this message, it is going to eventually. And so when they heard this, they were furious and began shouting, great is Artemis of the Ephesians. And soon the whole city was in an uproar. And the people seized Gaius and Aristarchus, Paul's traveling companions from Macedonia, and all of them rushed into the theater together. Paul wanted to appear before the crowd, but the disciples would not let him. They were like, if Paul comes, there's going to be a problem here. The assembly was in confusion. Think about it. It says some were shouting one thing, some another. Most of the people did not even know why they were there. So this was just like a commotion. It's like when you see people running and you don't know why they are running, but you just run with them. You see everybody entering the theater and you just enter. You're like, what's going on? And it says the Jews in the crowd pushed Alexander to the front and they shouted instructions to him and he motioned for silence. So you can imagine these people must have been like, these Jewish people have come with their false, like we don't like these Jewish people. And so Alexander comes to the front and it says they shouted instructions to him. He motioned for silence in order to make a defense before the people. But when they realized he was a Jew, they all shouted in unison for about 2 hours. How do you shout for 2 hours? Great is Artemis of the Ephesians for 2 hours. Anyway, it says the city clerk quieted the crowd and said, fellow Ephesians, doesn't all the world know that the city of Ephesus is the guardian of the temple of the great Artemis and of her image, which fell from heaven? Like, how did it fall from heaven, guys? They had told the lie so much it had become their truth. This is how tradition built on lies suddenly becomes the truth. They said her image fell from heaven. They said, therefore, since these facts are undeniable, how is that a fact that is undeniable? When did it happen? It says you ought to calm down and not do anything rash. You have brought these men here, though they have neither robbed temples nor blasphemed our goddess. If then Demetrius and his fellow craftsmen have a grievance against anybody, the courts are open and they are proconsuls. They can press charges. If there's anything further you want to bring up, it must be settled in a legal assembly. Same way the Quran fell from heaven. This is undeniable. As it is when danger of being charged with rioting because of what happened today. In that case, remember these people, the Roman Empire, the emperor at the time had, delegated certain regions to proconsuls, to pilots. And so the objective was that you are in charge of this region. You are in charge of maintaining law and order. And so if a rumor comes out that there is rioting, it is suggestive of the fact that your leadership has been called into account. It means that you are not capable of managing this territory. And so a lot of people were very, very, which is why Pilate was pressured into persecuting and killing Jesus. Because it's like, if there's a riot here, I'm losing my job. It is showing the capital that I am not able to maintain law and order in this place. And so they're like, please, let's stop all this rioting. We're in danger of being charged with rioting because of what happened today. In that case, we will not be able to account for this commotion since there is no reason for it. So if the proconsul there is like, why was there a riot? And we're like, we don't know. You're like, what? You're losing your job. After he had said this, he dismissed the assembly. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to know how to hear from God using the Bible, I'd love to invite you to a live Bible study session that is happening every single day, Monday to Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. EST, where I show you how to not just read the Bible for information, but how to meditate on it for revelation, because revelation is the key to your transformation. Take care. Bye-bye.